Hello and welcome to the oddschecker Cheltenham Festival preview sponsored by Betano. This is your day 2 preview. I'm your host George Ellick. I'm delighted to be joined by oddschecker's very own horse racing tipster Andy Holding and Betano ambassador Kate Tracy. How are you doing?
I'm really well, thank you. Yeah, so happy to be here, back in the studio again, but of course under the Betano guys this time around. So it's like the perfect blend of all my worlds.
Love it. We've just recorded day 1, so if you're coming to this having not seen that, make sure you go and check that one out first. So we discussed there the expected conditions around the week and other bits, so make sure you check out that episode first. But Betano have a new customer offer for those of you at home who haven't got a Betano account. You get bet 5, get £20 in free bets. It's a new customer only offer, 18 plus only, but bet £5 on horse racing, odds of 2 to 1 or more within 3 days of signing up, and you'll get 4 £5 free bets. For certain markets, they expire within 10 days. T's and C's, of course, to apply. Gambleaware.org, and please ensure you're gambling responsibly. But that is a good sign-up offer for those of you at home who haven't already got a Betano account. Make sure you get one. Now, racing time. We're going to go through, as is always the case on this show, each and every one of the races across the festival, kicking off on Wednesday with the newly named and quite confusingly named Turner's Novice Hurdle, where the New Lion is the 13 to 8 favourite ahead of Final Demand and Kopek de Board at 7 or 4. Of course, these are non-runner no bet prices. The Yellow Clay 5 to 1, Romeo Coolio 7 to 1, 10 to 1 James Gate, 10 to 1 Potter's Charm, 12 to 1 Six Mile Bridge, 16 to 1 Kisswill, 20 to 1 Bar Those. Now, Andy, we're recording this on the Wednesday before the week, so there are plenty of horses in there that we know are unlikely to be lining up in the final field. At this stage of recording, some question marks over whether or not Final Demand will take up, as expected, his place here, given that the price on the exchange is drifting a fair bit.
Yeah.
What do you make of the market as it is at the moment in the Turners?
Well, I think they're all going towards a New Line, aren't they, because of the drying ground, and I think that's causing one or two issues with potentially horses going elsewhere. You know, there's a little bit of chat about perhaps Final Demand might sidestep this and go to the Albert Bartlett, just because obviously if it was soft ground, they did make this race more of a test, which is very much in his remit. Whereas the horses like the Yellow Clay as well could also go to the Albert Bartlett as well, if the ground dries out. So as it stands at the moment, the one thing that we do know is the New Line's going to come here. So it's kind of like the safety numbers bet for quite a few. That's how I imagine, that's how I see how this market's going at the moment. I still think Final Demand will come here. I know Willie is the king of the switcheroo, isn't he?
But the Albert Bartlett isn't really a race that he tends to...
Exactly. So he's got a relatively poor record in it. It's not one of the recognised big championship races for novices. The Supreme and this one are the two, the creme de la creme. He's won this race with obviously a lot of good horses in recent times, including Ballymore last season. I'd be surprised if he was to change his mind at the final hour. And I still think he's the one to beat. You know, on the time figures that we've got, his performance at the DRF was the best so far of any 2.5 mile novice either side of the ROC. He was very strong after the last. You'd imagine Cheltenham suiting him down to the ground. I mean, it's still going to be on the easy side. Let's not get too run away with the idea. Looking at the water tables there, they've said that it's still soft. And if they do get a little bit of rain between now and then, I know it's going to be dry as well in between times, but it won't take too much just to top it up a little bit and to keep the moisture in it. So I don't think we get run away with the idea it's going to be good lightning quick ground all of a sudden. So I wouldn't have too many issues on that front. He's just a very good horse. Yet to see the best of the New Line really, and I don't mean that in visually. I mean in like a proper breakneck, out and out proper gallop.
I mean, how did that New Line? Because obviously visually, to win a Grade 1 like that, you don't see it very often. But what did that, in terms of the numbers, how did it stack up compared?
Yeah, it's surprising. I was when Andy Bato does our time figures for us as a company did them, I was really surprised that it was a little bit below what I was expecting. Basically, it was a 65 time figure. Normally, you'd expect the Grade 1 horses to be doing a 70 or upwards to be qualifiers for championship events. So it was a good, respectable time. 65 is always pretty good, above average, but it wasn't a wow time. Final Demand 71 at the DRF was obviously much better, a little bit more substance to it. They've obviously got a stronger gallop there. So that's what I mean with the New Line. He's visually looking great. and he's doing all that needs to be asked of him. But us as time people, we can't foresee or put a figure on what he might do. He could easily knock the ball out of the park. But as it stands at the moment, he hasn't quite got to the level of Final Demand. Not saying he can't, but that's why I think the Final Demand is definitely the one to beat. I personally back the Yellow Clay. Rather than get involved in the jousting between the front two in the market, which one's the best, I've backed and put up the Yellow Clay obviously quite a while ago now. Quite happy with that situation. I presume he'll come here.
Would you still be interested at the 5-1 now?
I think it'd be bigger on the day because I think there'll be a wealth of money for the front two. I think they'll be sort of in and around the 7-4 mark. He might go off 6-1, and you'll probably get 4 places on the day if there's enough runners. It looks like been a reasonable sized field this season. But I really like the Yellow Clay. He's no frills, no nonsense, just sort of poodles around in his own way and gets the job done. He's just a professional winner. He's a proper pro, and he's got Cheltenham Festival experience. Don't forget, he ran really well in last year's champion bumper. So I'm going to sort of play the sort of chick in the cop out role here, and quite happy on an each way bet on the Yellow Clay.
So Final Demand one to beat for Andy, but the Yellow Clay with a positive mention. Kate, how do you see it?
I want to echo so many of those sentiments, but I'm fuming that the Yellow Clay is most likely to go here because I was all over him for the Albert Bartlett. I just assumed, as Gordon Elliott was saying to everyone, wasn't he, saying, no, he is going to go for the Turners. And yet people, including myself, are continuing to back him for the Albert Bartlett and ignoring what the trainer has to say himself. And so if he does go here, I will be very disappointed. Because I think he's a lovely horse. As Andy just said there, he just does his own thing. There's no frills about him whatsoever. He's just very, very kind of formulaic as a horse and really, really likeable. But yeah, I fancied him for the Albert Bartlett. So on that basis, I was with Final Demand in here, though, all the same. Again, taking on the new Lion. And I was really keen to hear what Andy had said in terms of the figures for the Cheltenham Hurdle, because I obviously look at it from the visual perspective, the form in behind perspective, rather than being able to nail a figure down as such to it. But just I was impressed by him, but I wasn't taken by the race. We know it's one of the biggest cliches in racing, the Challow curse going into the 2.5 mile Novices Hurdle at the Cheltenham Festival as well. So I wasn't buoyed by that form whatsoever. And I've been so pleased that he's been backed for the last few days because of a drying forecast, because it means I am getting that more feasible price about Final Demand as well, who I am hoping he's going to come here. It was only the other day that his owner, Brian Drew, was on a Nick Luck's podcast and said that he is 70% likely to go for the Turners. He's 30% for the Albert Bartlett. So trying to sort of steer people that way, also with the caveat that he could go somewhere else. But yeah, he's quite similar to Copet de Boards in many respects in terms of the form cycle, because he too, 3 starts so far, winner at the DRF last time out. And I really like that Grade 1 form as well, because I was, not to pat myself on the back, with Wingmen each way then in second. And the reason I sided with him, because I just didn't know what Final Demand was at that stage. And Wingmen, he just set the benchmark with experience. We knew where he was, the old yardstick in that Grade 1 contest. And Wingmen ran to the level I was hoping and expecting. So for Final Demand to do that to him, just to me, he's now very much cemented himself as the one to beat.
7-4 about Final Demand. That is with Betano. Non-runner, no bet. So if you do take that 7-4 and Final Demand is rerouted to the Albert Bartlett, you will get your money back. No harm done. On to the second race on the card on Wednesday, the Brown Advisory Novice Chase, where Ballymore is the 5-4 favourite with Betano, ahead of Dancing City at 3-1. Better Days Ahead 7-1. Croke Park 9-1. Ahead of Django Bay, who's 8-1. Stella Story and Lecky Watson, both 12-1, 16-1 bar those. Andy, you've been... we've done a few of these shows over the last few weeks. We've spoken quite a lot about the Cheltenham Festival. Ballymore has been coming out of your mouth. Anything changed?
Not really, George. No, I think the one thing that has changed, it's kind of pushed this race more in his favour than it would Dancing City. If the ground was soft or heavy, a real sloggers kind of Brown Advisory that we used to get in yesteryear, that would definitely play into Dancing City's strengths more than Ballymore. But given the ground conditions are probably going to be good to soft, the classier horse in theory, the more silky smooth traveller, the horse with a touch of quality about him, Ballymore, would probably beat Dancing City 9 times out of 10 unless he does something rather unforeseen. It's hard to pinpoint what's his best performance, really. On the clock, actually, his best performance was first time out, according to us anyway. When I thought he was absolutely brilliant. The horses in behind have franked the form. One or two people crabbed that performance, but I thought his jumping was excellent. He was obviously put under immense pressure by Sergino at Kempton, but again, his time figure was excellent. Sergino's the quickest horse over 2 miles we've got this season with a 77. And he still ran a big number in chasing him home. His only mistake was at the last when he was obviously, probably beaten at the time, not probably quite fully focused. But I thought he was really good at Leopardstown at the Dublin Festival. He jumped great. He always looked as though he was going in third gear. And I like the fact that even though he looked in a smidgen of trouble going down to the last, he found plenty from the back of the last. And he put big distances between himself, Croke Park, up until then was unbeaten over fences and was a good horse in his own right. Impede Pass, genuine Grade 1 horse, winner at Limerick, of course, was way back in third. And subsequent form of Chant Kiley in third, who's won since, has franked the form. So I don't think he did a huge amount wrong at the DRF, but he was very strong at the line. And looking at the way I look at it, I was thinking, well, if another 2 furlongs on top of that, he would have won by even further, not by less. So I think he will stay. They think he's a future Gold Cup horse. So if he's going to be that good, and I believe that he is a generational talent, then hopefully he'll be good enough to win the Brown Advisory. So I don't see many horses in this race with his class. And if he runs like he did last year and when he won the Turners, then touch wood, he's going to take a bit of beating. Price is obviously drying up a little bit now, but that's the only negative I could see.
Well, the good people at Betano have taken a festival treble from both of you of your naps and boosted them. And spoiler alert for those who don't want to know Andy's other 2 selections, but Ballyburn is one of them. Fat to File another one, and East India Dock for the Triumph another. Betano pushing that out to 20-1 about the treble there. So if you go onto the Betano site and look at specials, you'll find Andy's Festival Naps treble. You'll find Kate's there as well. We'll get onto that later on in the show. And you can take the boosted price there. There's also another offer with Betano. Get 30-1 about Galopin de Champs to win the Gold Cup. Again, 18 plus, new customers only. Our maximum bet is £1 on Galopin de Champs at 30-1, which you can't really say no to. Also,
30 quid, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, well,
effectively.
We'll get to that. You have to have it's going to be up until 9 a.m. on the 12th of March, which is the Wednesday, I believe. The payout is in free bets, which expire after 5 days. T's and C's apply. Gambleaware.org. Please gamble responsibly. So Andy's all in on Ballyburn. Kate, how do you see this?
You know what? This is just going to sound like a complete copy and paste now for 2 races in a row on the Wednesday because
with plenty of races we'll disagree.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, exactly. Probably, well, like I say, when we start getting into the handicaps there. But
exactly.
Yeah, total agreement though about Ballyburn in here. I think the world of this horse. And as I was saying to you both before we started recording, that I'm in the very fortunate position to be able to go and ride out for Willie Mullins and to see these horses up close personal, get a real feel of their personality as well. And he is just one of those horses that seems to operate on another level. There's not much kind of horse about him. He's a few of them, you get their like pets of things, but he's just this sort of lunatic monster of an animal where he has to be out front by himself. He is so busy. He's turning sideways. He's taking rails off the whole way down to the gallop in the middle. He's the biggest handful of a thing you've ever seen. He's not a big horse, but he's just not wired right in the head. And very often when you get these real top draw horses, they're not wired right, hence why they can be as good as they are. And they can make mistakes such as he did at the last at Kempton and just completely shrug it off on their next start, not think twice about it. And he is just one of those horses completely. So I'm so pleased because after the Kempton defeat, you thought, okay, he has got some sort of fragility to him in terms of ability wise, but Sergino at the end of the day, that trip at Kempton, just nothing was right for him there. But we got our answers and we found out that he was beatable in that. But as Andy said there, that when he went back last time out, then I thought that was such a devastating performance. And it was, as Andy said, going to the lash, you thought, okay, is he just in a shade of trouble here for a few strides? No sooner did you think that than he cleared the last and he powered to the line. And I was under the exact same reasoning there that I thought, well, as soon as he hit the line, if you gave him another few furlongs, he would have just streaked away even further again. So, yeah, I've got no worries about him. Cheltenham Festival experience, drying ground will only be a benefit. He's bred to get this trip as well. So everything is pointing to him to being an improved model over 3 miles. And, of course, we don't have the 2.5 Grade 1 Novice Chase now. So, in its normal format. So yeah, Ballyburn again for me.
Do we think? I mean, he'd have run in that, wouldn't he?
I
Any other year.
Thought so.
Is that a concern in itself that he's only in this race because the 2.5 has gone?
I'm not concerned. Like I say, that would have been my thought just because of what he has been running over. But as I say, as soon as you look at his pedigree and the fact they have dubbed him as a future Gold Cup horse, they might well have taken this up anyway to get their answers further down the line. And he's good enough to win over either. So, I'm not perturbed by that at all.
5-4, the double selection, Ballyburn there. Again, non-run, no bet with Betano. On to the Coral Cup. Time for you guys to disagree.
We hope.
Kopek to me is favourite for about 17 races at the festival. This is one of them, albeit it's very unlikely it seems that he'll be taking up this entry. So we'll talk about him another time. So Be Aware is, to all intents and purposes, the favourite here. 6-1 with Betano. Wadu and Impost Trois, both 10-1. Super Sunday, Alto Belly and Bally Adam, all 12-1. Jericho de Repene, 14-1, 16-1. Comfort Zone. A few others in there as well. 20-1 Bar. Kate, we'll give you first run at the Coral Cup.
Thank you very much. Yeah, if like say, I mean, this Kopek to me, we're going to go into him a lot more than, hopefully for the races I'm going for instead. Yeah, instead of going here. But yeah, it has been interesting with Be Aware, the fact that the Market Sport has followed him in. He's been a horse that's been a divisive figure for me so far this season. But I'm actually with Imposed Trois, and I'm glad that Nicky Henderson is now leaning more towards the Coral Cup as well, rather than the Martin Pipe that was discussed in a few days ago, said that he's leaning more towards the Coral Cup. So hopefully that will come to fruition as well, because I ran the trends for this race then, and coming into the Coral Cup on the back of one run in the season has been no bad thing in recent years. That's exactly what this lad has. That's our run, being a success at Newbury in a handicap hurdle in November. Now that was on the back of a prolonged break as well. So he's proven he can go well fresh, which of course he's going to be coming here into on the back of 102 days off. And he's always been well thought of, this horse. And you thought that this really could have been the season where he got to show his full ability. But of course, we haven't fully seen him to know that as such. So he could still fulfill that potential on the bigger stage. But the thing that would help him come of age, you would have thought, is just if he can cut out some of those mistakes, which have been fairly commonplace for him in his races so far. And that was relevant to an extent on his previous start when he had placed in the Lanzarote on that penultimate outing. And the option was there seemingly for him to go to the newly named William Hill handicap hurdle. Yeah, I forget again from year to year all of these name changes. But you thought he would go to there. So it was interesting that Nicky Henderson said afterwards, though, that he wanted to go up in trip, not go for that race. So he's getting a whole extra 1 furlong here in the Coral Cup than last time out as well, which could suit even better. So yeah, Imposed Trois, I'm hoping he's just gone slightly under the radar here.
Imposed Trois, 10-1 with Betano here for the Coral Cup. Andy?
Not a race at this very moment in time, George, I've got a particularly strong view on. I think I'll look at it today. It's not a race I've got a great record in. I think Son of Flicker was the last horse I backed to win. It was back in 2012, although it was at a 40-1 shot. So I've got a bit of credit in the bank.
Pays for a few losers.
But I'm slowly giving it all back, my Coral Cup winnings. I just find it a real head scratcher. Lots of different trends for it as well. That intermediate distance, Cheltenham form, certain trends sort of like stand out and don't. I think most of the winners have had to run over at least 2.5 miles at some stage.
It feels like the big field handicaps on the old course are just like, they're such a mess turning in if you're not in position.
So difficult.
Yeah. But jockeys say this is the worst race to ride in. So the Coral Cup's way scarier than the county hurdle. So this is the terrifying one because it's such a stop-start.
Yeah. Aidan Coleman last night called it a dog track, basically,
really?
Like the old course, because you're just there and if you're not in position turning in, you just can't really, you get stuck in traffic, don't you? So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, Dan Skelton's obviously got a taste for it. He's won it the last 2 years with Langadan. He hasn't got Langadan this year, but he has got Be Aware, who's been the ante-post gamble. He's run 2 perfectly respectable races so far this season. The Great Wood, the form of that race has worked out really well. Probably wasn't quite as sharp at Ascot next time. It was a funny race, though, wasn't he? Got stretched early and he was sort of out with the washing and then ran on to finish third behind Fiercely Proud. And he's been kept for this ever since. I think he'll go off, a fairly shortish price, 4-1, 5-1. So if he floats your boat, I certainly wouldn't stand in your way. I've tried to look for something original. Thought Comfort Zone might run okay. He's a previous Cheltenham winner. He's actually a Grade 3 winner here back in the day. and he stays the trip really well. He ran well last time out at Leopardstown, and he's 33rd in a very competitive handicap. Came home really strongly, hit the line well. I thought he might be interested in a price, but that's just strictly for this podcast only. Really, I'm just throwing a couple of names into the pot, just to suggest that I've at least done a little bit of homework on the race.
We know
that's about as far as it goes. I'll probably spend more time on that race once I get the full decks. So 48 hours in advance, I'll come up with something a little bit more concrete.
Keep your eyes.
It might be one of those two I've mentioned.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on then to the what's next? The cross country, isn't it? Yeah, the cross country next up. Obviously now a handicap, as if it wasn't hard enough to pick the winner of this race beforehand. Stumptown is a 9-4 favourite with Betano. Galvin 4-1. Bustleton and Mr. Coffee both 7-1. 8-1 Vanillier, 12-1 ICO Madrick, 14-1 Late Night Pass, 16-1 The Goffer and Cocoa Beach, 20-1 Chemical Energy. You know, Andy, as I said, given this is now a handicap, you kind of think that form coming into this race should be taken with a bit of a pinch of salt, and there's a bit of guessing going on. Who takes your fancy at the prices now?
Well, as I'm a glutton for an each way bet, and I like to play with some each way multiples on a day, particularly if I see a short price favourite, I'll steer clear and go down a different route. And you can get a nice sort of compilation of multis at sort of 7-1, 8-1, blah blah blah, and they all add up just as well as back in 4 to 5 shots. I think it's
exactly what the guys at Betano want to hear you putting up.
Exactly, each way thievery. As much as apples are apples, I'm pretty sure that Mr. Coffee will be in the first 4 here. Yeah. He's been called more rude names under the sun than anyone I can know in the game, but he does have a habit of running his race, and particularly he seems to have taken to this cross country course pretty well. He was second early on the season to a French horse, and then he chased down Stumptown last time out. It came from a long way back. They're probably a little bit conservative with the way they rode in that day. But yeah, he's just the type that will do exactly what it says on the tin.
Is there any concern that he's the one whose form is probably the most genuine coming into this, whereas there are others looking at the likes of Bustleton, who this has been the target?
I fully expect there's going to be a couple of plotted up horses that haven't really showed their hand, like Galvin, for instance. He just had the one run. The ground's very much coming for him. Obviously Stumptown, and you got there's another French horse here as well. I did a preview the night with Richard Halls, and he was quite keen on Isaiah Madrick, for reasons I won't go into, that boys to tears, but he was very keen on him. Bustleton has obviously, had a couple of sighters. He seems to have taken well to the course. And there's good old Vanillier as well, who bounced back to form last time out in Punchestown. So it's a really good race this year. I think there's quality names. It looks a quality heat. But yeah, I'll be stunned if Mr. Coffee isn't in the first 4.
How do you see it, Kate?
Yeah, I've got him to finish second. But again, just the same form behind Stumptown, who, again, originality is clearly key for me. But yeah, Stumptown's still very much the horse to beat. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, as it's a handicap now, then being able to win this off a mark of 157. But of course, it's a limited handicap, so he's carrying 11 stone 10, which isn't an absolute burden of a weight to be lugging around there by any means. And he just feels like he might be the new kid on the block in the cross-country sphere, because I know that we've associated this race in recent years with those sort of ex-Gold Cup horses, with the back class, but just not good enough at the highest level in the saying open chases nowadays. But then it's obviously a different race this time around, very much so. And it feels like we haven't had some of those specialist cross-country horses, your Balthazar Kings, your Spot the Differences. I mean, Tiger Roll was the most recent of which, but feels like we've just been wanting that horse that is just a complete specialist in this discipline to come about. I just feel that Stumptown is very much that, and that the handicap angle now is actually going to really suit him as well, because he's 3 from 4 in this sphere, and the only time he was beaten over cross-country Banks races was over the Banks course in Punchestown. And even then, it was only because a loose horse came and took him out. And he was bang there in contention at that point anyway. So 3 from 4 in this sphere. He's proven himself already around this course and distance. And for all that we've got potentially a few sort of plot jobs as such, it's not an easy race to be able to plot a horse to go to and to take to around the cross-country course of Cheltenham. So he's just for solid play. He's an 8-year-old, so he could hopefully rack up a bit of a sequence over the years then and really become that mainstay in the cross-country division from here on in. So, yeah, I thought Stumptown again was the horse to beat, and Mr. Coffee to finish second to him, such is his want.
There's a forecast for you. If you nail the forecast in the cross country, you're doing well.
Yeah.
9-4 Stumptown, the selection FK with Mr. Coffee 7-1, getting a positive mention for both the guys, and one stick in your each way multis, according to Andy. On to the big race of Wednesday, the Queen Mother Champion Chase, where John Bon is the 4-5 favourite ahead of Marine Nationale at 6-1. Gaelic Warrior 5-1. Energumene and Solness both 7-1. Banbridge 8-1. Founder 50 14-1. LA Francais is in there at 4-1, but as we will discuss, unlikely to take this one up. Again, looking at the naps from you guys, the Festival Naps treble. This is the first, or actually the second leg of yours, Kate. Kopek de Board for the Supreme, John Bon for the Queen Mother Champion Chase, and 6.5 for the Mares Novice, boosted by Betano to 14-1. John Bon's form away from Cheltenham, unbeaten, lost three races in his life, all three of them coming at Cheltenham. But you think he can do it this time?
Yeah, this has been the stone that people have been throwing at John Bon, haven't they? But we were discussing this before we even started recording here. Well, you look at the three horses who have beaten him around Cheltenham: Constitution Hill and the Supreme.
Fine.
He's not going to beat him. Absolutely fine. Then he goes and gets beaten by El Fabiolo when El Fabiolo was at his monstrous peak. And then, of course, with Elixir de Nuts, and he tried to take the second last, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Second last, absolutely with him, and he still nearly won. And as we were all saying there, he was an absolute sort of mess. It was a whitewash of sweat before the race as well. So I can forgive all three of those defeats at Cheltenham so far. And he's such a consistent horse, and yet still people are trying to throw stones at him. But last time out then, picking up the Grade 1 Clarence House Chase over Energumene, he never looked in any spot of danger for that whatsoever. Taking his rules wins to 17 from 20, a 9th Grade 1 win, putting away a dual champion chase winner and a career best RPR as well. So who's to say that he isn't actually getting better at the age of 9 as well? He's just been picking up Grade 1s for fun, wonderfully consistent as well. The only thing that's missing from his CV is this champion chase win. So I hope he gets it. Hopefully everyone can really put the respect finally on his name. And I mean, I love Solness. I absolutely adore Solness. You know, he did me a right turn, winning at the DRF, then in the Dublin Chase. But I just think he's going to give John Bon a nice toe into the race more so than anything else. So I can't side with him on this time around. And yeah, it's just got to be John Bon, because I have no idea what's going to beat him, especially with the forecast the way it is.
Got to be John Bon, says Kate. Andy, do you agree?
Yeah, it's more likely going to be John Bon as well. I can't say anything bad about John Bon because my mum's watching this. She's absolutely string me up. She absolutely loves John Bon. Every time John Bon wins, sends me a little message.
Really?
What a star.
Get a lot of messages then.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Constant communication.
Yeah.
My mum's probably one of the biggest national racing fans out there.
Really?
Never has a bet, goes to virtually every meeting.
Love it.
We'll go just to see John Bon. Yeah, she absolutely loves him.
She's going to be at Cheltenham next week?
Yeah, she'll be there. She'll be there on the Wednesday as well.
Right.
So, touch wood, yeah.
Of course, what other day we should go to? Yeah.
Of course, yeah. To see John Bon. So, yeah, she'll be looking forward to it. She'll be a nervous wreck before the start. So I hope it wins just for my mum. But no, joking aside, he's just been imperious this season. I actually think he's settled down a little bit. Kate mentioned that the day when he got beat by Elixir de Nuts, he was a little bit skittish beforehand. That was his way back then, but he seems to have been maturing as he's got older, which not has always gone that way with several humans.
Not looking at
myself, looking in the mirror. Yeah, he's just been brilliant. I'm a fully paid-up member of his club, and I hope he does win. But if he doesn't, then from a financial interest, I've actually backed Marine Nationale. I haven't gone against John Bon as such. I just thought a week or two ago, Marine Nationale in and around the sort of 8, 9, 10 to 1 mark was not a bad each way alternative. Given the forecast, it's going to dry out. It's going to be more of a chance for Marine Nationale to get home, which sometimes he hasn't, admittedly. But I think a lot of the times when he hasn't, or he's come up a bit short on the running, it's been when the ground's been winter soft. I thought he was really good behind Solness at the DRF. He was a long way behind at the back, going down the back straight. I think his jockey riding that day just thought, Solness is bound to come back. And Solness just kept going. But, he bridged the gap from like 10, 15 lengths behind to a length down to the last. So it was a big effort for him to get there. Flattened out a little bit late on, but it's still a good run. Comes out well on the numbers. He's just a really likeable, consistent type. He's a Cheltenham Festival winner. Genuine Grade 1 horse, and it'd be a great result, of course, for the Barry Connell and the team if those colours were to be carried to victory. Obviously, what happened to Mikey O'Sullivan. But poignancy aside, I genuinely feel as though Marine Nationale will be in the 3. So I'm trying to give alternatives. I'm trying to put the likes of Mr. Coffee and the Yellow Clay and Marine Nationale in some each-way multiples rather than, go down the favourite route.
Yeah, I think the parade ring will be a special place to be. Should Marine Nationale win the champion chase on Wednesday afternoon, and Andy making a case there, 6-1. Sounds like could be another one for your each way multis, isn't it?
There you go.
There we
That's
go.
what I'm trying to do.
On to the Grand Annual now, where we've got Liberty Hunter is the 7-1 favourite with Betano ahead of Unexpected Party, Firefox and My Mate Mozzie at 8-1. Jazzy Matty is 9-1. The King of Pires and Touch Me Not both 10-1. So Scottish 12-1, 14-1 bar those. Go on, Kate. You can take us away in the Grand Annual.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I really like Firefox in here, and I think that he's a feasible price at the time of recording then as well. He's such a cool horse, isn't he? He's ever so consistent, and I've obviously really liked him along with a lot of people since his Novice Hurdle days, where he beat Ballymore, of course, and everyone else saw that at the time. And you just thought, okay, he could be a superstar in his own right here. But Ballymore went on from then, as we know. But Firefox, he's just been tipping away, running well at a high level without being a standout as such. But as a result of that, he's not found himself badly treated here to go into a handicap for the first time at the festival on a mark of 150. Third in the Supreme last year behind Slade Steel. And we know that the Supreme wasn't much of a contest last year, but he proved himself at the festival to a large extent with that. Now, when I saw his last race in the Irish Arkle, I thought he wants to step up in trip from the 2-mile one that he faced there. But I really think that the Grand Annual could suit him well. And it's just his mark as much as anything else. So, yeah, for an ever so consistent horse, I hope the trip doesn't play out against him, because we know that very often in the Grand Annual, those front runners can get on to the front end of a pace, use all the pace to get there and just not come back to the remainder. So he's going to need to keep a toe on them out in front. But I just thought that Firefox would be there, and he's got all the ability to be featuring off that mark.
Firefox 8-1 with Betano, a selection there for Kate. And is this a handicap you got more of a view on?
I've got stronger views in some of the handicaps we would likely to touch upon later on in the week. Again, looking from an each-way perspective, you're looking at each-way multiples and looking for play spot horses. I think My Mate Mozzie definitely has to come into that category. A horse that travels well in his races and sometimes doesn't always find as much off the bridle as what you think he's going to. But he's likely to run himself into the frame, similar to Mr. Coffee. Like I say, all these add up. You get 10-12-1 My Mate Mozzie, 6-7-1 about the Yellow Clay and Mr. Coffee and Marine Nationale. You can do just as well by not even picking a winner. Firms are going to be betting 5-6 places on the day, and he'll just fiddle around like he often does, and then come with his late rattle like he did last time in the DRF when he finished second to that thing of Paul Nolan's. He's got a reasonably good Cheltenham record. I think the only time he ran badly here was when he was 6 behind Gaelic Warrior on genuine soft ground.
He's won on the old course before.
The better ground, the better suit him, because it just helps him travel and see it out a bit better. So at this very early stage, like I say, looking for something for the listeners to perhaps put in some of those each way multiples that we've mentioned. He looks the one at the moment.
Yeah, 2 at 8-1 there for the guys. Firefox at 8-1 for Kate, 8-1 about My Mate Mozzie as well for Andy in the Grand Annual. The last race on the card on the Wednesday is, of course, the Champion Bumper, where a bit of market movement in the last day or two. Game of Inch is still a 3-1 favourite with Betano, but on the drift in a few places. Copacabana, the one where the money is coming for, 7-2 about Copacabana now. 6-1 Calypso Chance. Bambino Fever is 7-1. 10-1 Aquaforce. 10-1 Jalon Duderi. 12-1 about No Drama This End, and Kaiser Ball 14-1 bar those. And this is another where you've got a lot of horses with a lot of ones next to their name, and visually some look more impressive than other ones, but the clock can often tell a different story. How's the market comparing to your speed figures here?
Completely topsy-turvy.
Yes, that's what I like to hear. I remember you sent me, was it 3 years ago?
Yeah.
You sent me your speed figure sheet.
Yeah.
And I remember Lecky Watson was second and was 100 to 1.
I know, he finished fourth, didn't he?
Finished fourth, he got stopped in running, and now,
I know.
look at him now. So
I mean, it is very difficult to judge every horse on their merits just after 1 or 2 runs, because they might just have been involved in a very slowly run bumper, and it's not their fault that that's the way it transpired, which is the case with Copacabana. But I always tend to find what we have traditionally over the years is horses like that. It's a bit of a baptism of fire, chucking them in a race off the back of such a slowly run one. They've now got to run at championship pace. And are they going to be as fully effective? I don't know the answer to that. But I do know that a lot of horses like Copacabana who've only run really slow times, and he's actually only got one slower than him in this race based on numbers. They often do get caught out. And at 4 to 1, or was it 7 to 2?
7 to 2.
I think he's way too short. I'm not saying he cannot win, but I'd rather lay him at that price and back him, put it that way.
It's also both the top 2 in the market, like 9th of February for Copacabana and 20th of February for Game of Inches. Like, it's a quick turnaround, isn't it?
Yeah, you go back and watch that Copacabana race. They've literally crawled for a mile and a half, and then he showed a nice little turn of foot to beat. I didn't think a great field. They're finishing a bit of a heaping behind him. I thought he looked good, but then the clock said it was just a nothing race, really. So I don't know anything more about Copacabana than what the clock said. Obviously, if he's doing great stuff at home and he's working better than Game of Inches, fine, then you'd have to respect that. But Game of Inches did a good number when he won it. I thought he won apologising the other day. He looked a much more stronger model, much more typical build of a horse that wins the champion bumper. You often get like 2.5 milers, chasers, that kind of horse wins a champion bumper nowadays. I prefer him out of the front 2 in the market. But out of the 3 Willie Mullins horses that dominate the market, I think Bambino Fever's the underestimated one. I was hugely impressed with her when she won at the DRF. It was a strong race. There was a lot of mares that had got good form going into it, a lot of high reputations. It was a strongly run affair. She quickened up really well from the wings of the second last, swept by the field, and then just powered her way to the line. This race will really suit her. We know she can handle a strongly run environment. And I think she'll be underestimated because Jodie Townend will ride her, no disrespect to her, but you'll probably get Patrick Mullins on one and obviously Paul Townend will ride the other. So you could get sort of 8-10 to 1 on the day for Bambino Fever, which would be lovely. And she reminds me very much of Relegate, who won this race several years ago for Willie Mullins, a mare who was off the bridle and then came through and won quite nicely. You know, I think she's been underestimated, and I think the other 2, well, particularly Copacabana, have been overestimated.
7 to 1's fine, Andy, but it's not 100 to 1 for your Mullins outsider.
Sorry, I'd like to come up with something at a massive price. I do think Dan Skelton's got a nice horse. He got beat by No Drama this end at Warwick. I do like No Drama this end. I think he's quite smart. And a horse called Kiep de Board.
Here we go.
Who finished second to him. He was actually favourite on the day. He wasn't streetwise enough to win that day, but I thought Harry Skelton looked after him. I think he's going to be one of the nicest long-term projects in this race. I don't know whether he runs or not because Dan's got 2 or 3 in it. But whatever happens to him, he will improve quite significantly throughout the course of his career. So keep an eye on Coep de Board. I don't think he's a horse who should be sort of, not having on your short list at some stage.
Lovely stuff. Kate, who do you fancy? Is the bumper a horse you tend to have a bet in? I know some people tend to head to the bar for the last.
Yeah, no. I love watching it, obviously, but it's definitely not a big, complete transparency here. It's not a betting race for me whatsoever. Yeah. But I am fascinated. I mean, it's going to be a good race, I hope, for the sire Blue Brazil. He's the sire of both of the top 2 in the betting here. And Blue Brazils, they're funny horses because they take a long time to mature. They really are. They're kind of all over the place, as a young horses. But then once they do finally, the penny drops for them, you get the best out of them, but only for a brief amount of time. Because Andrew Mount, actually, our colleague, was saying about this the other day that I believe, I don't want to misquote him here, but it was about over the age of 8, then they their form starts to plateau somewhat, and they are quite fragile as well. So you kind of only get that real finite time to get them at the most mature, and with at the most ability as well then. So lots of them have been winning and doing well despite immaturity, as we know. And that's been the case to an extent with the pair of these two, Copacabana and Game of Inches. But I'm with Game of Inches as well. Yeah, Copacabana, it's just too short for me. He could be anything, but I haven't seen it. Rather than that bit more experience, of course, for Game of Inches, for 2 point-to-point runs. Yes, he fell on his Irish point debut, but then he went to Dromahand, one of the leading Irish point-to-point tracks, as we know, and went and won that well from a couple of subsequent winners also. But the money was just there last time out. Rules debut, Centerford 8-15. As Andy was saying there, he's just a lovely big type. He's a half-brother to the Kaluki kids, so he's going to make, hopefully, unlike a lot of champion bumper winners of late, a lovely jumper in time. And we know that those horses, sometimes they don't always win the champion bumper, the lovely big jumping types and in time, but a really well run champion bumper will suit him a lot. So it is going to be fascinating to see who Paul Townend chooses, but at this stage I am more than happy to side with Game of Inches.
Game of Inches just about still favourite with Betano, 3-1 favourite for the champion bumper, Bambino Fever and the selection, currently 7-1. Willie's in the bumper after all. Okay, there we have it. That brings our day 2 preview to a close. We'll be recording day 3 shortly. Thank you very much to our sponsors, Betano. As I mentioned throughout the show, they've boosted both Andy and Kate's festival trebles. So if you go onto specials on the Betano site, you can find Andy's boosted to 20-1, Kate's boosted to 14-1. Couple of offers as well, as mentioned, a £1 max bet on 30-1 about Galopin Des Champs to win the Gold Cup. T's and C's do apply, and make sure you read up on those before taking that. And also bet 5, get 20 in free bets. Again, 18 plus only, and for new customers only, you have to opt in for that. And in both offers, winnings paid in free bets. T's and C's do apply. Gambleaware.org. Please gamble responsibly. Oddschecker have you covered, of course, across the festival for the best prices across the market, and Andy's tips straight to the app and on site every single morning, normally night before during the big festivals as well there. Thank you to Andy. Thank you to Kate.
Thank you.
And make sure you check out days 1, 3 and 4. And if you are gambling on the festival, please ensure you're gambling responsibly and enjoy the racing.